Hi, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Southern Fried Podcast, a production of the Arkansas Democrat Gazette. I'm Rex Nelson, senior editor of the Democrat Gazette, and good to have back because we've had him on the podcast before, but it's been a while. Bryan Day from the Little Rock Port Authority. Bryan, thank you for joining us.
Golly, thanks for having me again. It's always fun, and since I've been here last time, a lot's happened out
I
at
was
the
going
port.
to say, you have got so much going on at the Port of Little Rock. It's really exciting, and it's really an exciting time for our whole central Arkansas economy, frankly, as we seem to be becoming this real distribution and manufacturing hub. So I wanted to start with some specific news and then broaden it out, kind of to get your big picture
You bet.
on where we are right now. But I got to go back to that just recently, that final week of October. I mean, in 1 week, you had two announcements and announced about 700 new jobs coming. Start with Faymonville, a European company. How did they get on the radar? How did you get them to Little Rock?
That's a great question. And when a prospect comes to any community, they come in a whole bunch of different ways, from site selectors to C-suite executives to real estate brokers. The Faymonville is actually a family-owned company out of Luxembourg, seventh generation family.
Yeah, I looked up their history in a column I'll be writing.
There's
Yeah.
not many of those,
Yeah.
right? And the two brothers who managed the company had been looking around. They wanted to come to America. They looked around on the East Coast last summer. Really, nothing felt right, didn't fit for them. There's a company here in Arkansas that sells their product, Hell Trailers, and they reached out to that vendor, and he said, "Hey, come check out Little Rock." They also looked at Jonesboro,
Mm-hmm.
and when the brothers got here, they just fell in love with Arkansas. You've said it before, sometimes that if we can get them here, we can keep them here.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And they liked what they saw, and they showed up to the port, working with the chamber and ADC. We put together some opportunities for them, and they just liked it. We knew they were coming to Arkansas,
Mhm.
and it would have been good for Arkansas wherever they went
Right,
to.
right.
This is a really neat company that builds trailers for oversized loads. Think space. I think they moved all of Elon Musk's SpaceX
Wow.
bracket. So they chose Little Rock after looking all over the East Coast. They chose Arkansas, I think, because they had a relationship with a vendor here, and they just liked what they saw. It felt good. We're a small town with a big heart. We gave them the attention they needed. We answered their questions, and they made that announcement. And it's going to be a big win for Arkansas. It's a really cool brand. Another European. It's our 8th foreign investment at the port. And as you mentioned, they're going to spend a little over $120 million, and when fully operational, hire about 500 people.
Wow, that's exciting. And then just 2 days later, I mean, this was all in the same week, Welspun Tubular, which has been really one of your anchors out there for a number of years now, they're about to invest another $100 million, upgrade their pipe production complex, and that's going to add another 175 jobs to what they're doing.
That's another big win. Of course, Welspun, they came to Little Rock in 2007.
I couldn't remember the exact year, 07.
There's a great story about how they came. They connected via email and came to Arkansas, and my predecessor, Paul Latour, and others, Jim Daly, who was the mayor, they showed them the attention that we're so good at giving, and they chose Arkansas. On this particular project, they were looking at Little Rock as well as Houston. They have another operation in Houston. So for about a year, we worked to try to put the deal together, to get the package together. And fortunately for us, and we're super excited, they chose to build this third factory here at the Port of Little Rock. The nice thing about Welspun, they are a large user of the Arkansas River Navigation System. And by bringing those barges full up of steel coils, we create empty barges for grain and other products to go downriver. This will increase their river tonnage. They also are a large user of the railroad system. And that's one of the key elements that the port generates our operating revenue from. So this will increase our rail use. And they're a large employer, north of 1,000 people. This is going to add another 120 jobs. So another big win for us. It all just kind of fell together towards the end of the year. And we are super proud to welcome Welspun's expansion.
All right. Of course, previously announced a few years ago. I'm trying to run through as many of these because so much has happened since we last had you on the show. But in August, Trex had the topping out ceremony for its manufacturing facility at the port, largest producer of composite decking and railing in the world. They're investing about 400 million, I understand. So that project moving along and coming online soon.
It is. They announced. I guess it's been about 3 years ago, and they right kind of in the middle of the pandemic, the inflation, the cost of money, but they have moved forward. And if you haven't seen their buildings, it's fascinating. Large investments. They will be in production next spring. That $400 million plus investment, 550 new jobs. It's another really cool brand. Composite decking. A large recycler of plastic shopping bags, and it's a nice win for Arkansas. They could have located anywhere in America, as any of these companies could, but we get them here. They fall in love with our community, and they want to stay and they want to invest. And Trex is another big win for Little Rock.
Yeah, so more activity everywhere. And then earlier in the year, we were talking about Faymonville being European based. You had a Norwegian company that broke ground on its first U.S. production site.
That is correct. Alopak. Alopak is a manufacturer of cardboard containers for liquids, orange juice, water, almond milk, and they're headquartered out of Norway. They have an operation in Canada, and they too kind of did their own search and chose Little Rock. They looked at 35 communities across the country. This is their first foray into North America. When fully operational, they'll produce about 2 billion cardboard liquid containers a year. There'll be a large rail user at the port, and they're going to hire about 150 people and invest about $100 million. Renard Driesman, who has kind of ran that for Alopak, and you may remember what he said, that he looked at these 35 communities. Little Rock was the smallest, but he said we had the biggest heart.
Wow.
And that's why he chose our community. And that's what sets us apart from so many other communities as we compete for these projects around the country.
Wow. I said I wanted. I mean, that's just things that have happened in the past year. I mean, you now have roughly how many people coming to work on an average day? At
So
the
we
Port of
we
Little Rock?
have 53 businesses that house at the
53.
port, and the numbers. It's hard to tie it down specifically, but based on anecdotal information, based on communications with our industries, we have about 10,000 people that come to the port
Massive
every
economic
day
engine. Yeah.
to make a living,
Yeah.
and we
10,000.
know they come from over 40 counties.
Yeah. I
Um,
remember when you were on the show before, you told me it was more than
miles
40.
miles equal minutes in Arkansas. That is a huge selling point. We're a rural state,
Right.
and and my brother lives in Atlanta. It takes him an hour to go like 18 miles. So we can tell an industry that if you come here, miles equal minutes, so you can acquire a labor shed of about 60 or 70 miles, and that's why we're able to attract those 10,000 plus people every day to the port to make a living that supports their family, that invests in their future, and we're really proud of that fact.
Oh, as you should be. I look around, and it is not just when I say distribution and manufacturing. It is not just the port. I mean, and that has to be exciting to you for all of Central Arkansas. I mean, I go out there and I'll take the Galloway exit now and pass the Amazon facility there in North Little Rock. Mile after mile of new distribution centers being built as you head east toward Lono, Tractor Supply and Maumelle with theirs. On the manufacturing side, right next door to you, we focused on the port, but Dassault Falcon had a major announcement in the last year
that is
that they're
correct.
adding on,
Yeah,
which is bringing even more workforce to that part of the city.
I think that communities like Central Arkansas, we have an opportunity over the next 5 to 10 years to really grow our footprint in manufacturing and distribution for a number of reasons. One, if you look at Arkansas in general, we tend to be a business-friendly state. We're a right-to-work state, and whether you're for or against unions, that is a factor that people look at when they're wanting to locate. But more importantly, and I'm seeing this with my peers from around the country, it is easier to build in a community like Little Rock or Tulsa or Jackson, Tennessee, because it's not built out like Kansas City or Dallas or Atlanta or Memphis. It's more affordable. Labor's slightly cheaper. The cost of living is cheaper. Transportation is easier. So we're seeing this emphasis on, I would say, middle America, mid-sized communities. It's our turn now. You know, for 100 years, everyone wanted to be in the big urban centers, and now it's middle America. The other thing I think we're going to see, climate change, whether you believe it's real or not, it is impacting corporate America's decision, and we're seeing businesses wanting to move off the coast. We're wanting to see businesses move back inland to avoid rising tides or storms or things like that. And places like Little Rock, we're set to do that. And what you're seeing in Galloway, you know, what you've seen in Conway with the growth that they're having out there with Westrock and others,
Exactly.
DeSoto, Falcon, Caterpillar, and Remington, the big investment. I mean, and we're talking about Central Arkansas, but we can't forget the whole state. Weyerhaeuser, the big announcement a couple of years ago. I
Which
mean,
is
Arkansas,
wonderful for South
it's
Arkansas. Yeah.
fantastic. And Arkansas, it's our turn now. And I think that all the things are in place, all the chips are in place for us to have some success over the next decade. And it'll be interesting. I shared with this last time, you know, I think we're going to double our size. We're going to increase our workforce. And I look forward to having this conversation in 10 years. And the numbers then, I believe personally, are going to be significantly more than what we have today.
You know, I hope I'm still doing this show in 10 years, and we will look back and say you predicted it. But let's go back. We talked about this the last time I had you on, but I go back to during the pandemic when we were all concerned with the pandemic, so it kind of flew under the radar. But Amazon makes the decision to place a massive distribution facility at the Port of Little Rock. They built another massive facility on the North Little Rock side. They suddenly inject thousands of jobs into the Central Arkansas economy. And it seemed to me that, you know, if the big boy, if Amazon's doing it, kind of sent a message, Bryan, to the rest of the country that, boy, this place is logistically a sweet spot. And now we've seen Dollar General, Home Depot, Tractor Supply, all coming in with distribution. Am I right on that? The Amazon decision really sent a message to the rest of the
You're
country?
absolutely correct. You know, and it was kind of under the radar. But
that company likes it.
They do.
as you
They
know.
do. But you know, Amazon's one of the best at what they do, and that's distribute goods. And their experts felt that Little Rock, Arkansas made a lot of sense. We've got great access to interstates. We had available greenfield space. We have available workforce. We're business friendly. And when they chose Little Rock, you know, on the heels of that, we had a number of calls. You know, what is this place? What is this port of Little Rock?
Yeah.
But Amazon choosing Little Rock was a watershed movement for the port, and watershed moment for the port. And I think it opened us up to kind of a national recognition that we didn't have before. And we're continuing to reap those benefits. And I believe that companies like Alopac and Trex and Faymonville, when they know that Amazon believes in us, then they have to say, this can't be a bad place. Maybe we should take a closer look.
Absolutely. I look at the future, and as you mentioned, all of the things that are going on right now, and like you said, I tend to agree with you from a manufacturing distribution standpoint. It is kind of Arkansas's time. You now are starting to market. We've heard a lot about it, waiting on the navigational aids to move, but the 1,000-acre supersite. Talk about that, how you plan to market it, and what you would like to see go on that site that would be of best benefit for all of us who live here in Arkansas.
That's a great question. So just a little background for your listeners. 8 years ago, we decided to move in a southerly direction for our footprint expansion. And right in the middle of our growth path was this navigation aid called a VOR cone. And we called the FAA and said, hey, we'd like to move it. And they said, not so fast. We're not interested. But with the help from the chamber, Senator Bozeman, Congressman Hill, our whole delegation, we actually have an act of Congress that says we can move this cone. 8 years later, the great news is, Rex, that sometime probably around February 1st, maybe March 1st at the latest, the new cone will go online.
Oh, wow. So we're close.
It's finished. It's programmed. It's working. They've got to test it. The old one will go offline, and we will begin doing site prep for this mega site. We're already marketing it quietly. We're
Okay.
doing some due diligence, working on infrastructure needs, wetland mitigation, site improvements, and we've had some interest. And I think that once we get that cone completely relocated or closed, the old one torn down and removed, we'll have an aggressive marketing campaign with the chamber and the state site selectors. And I believe that Jay Cheshire and I, who work closely together, we believe in 2 or 3 years we're going to have a prospect on that site.
Mm-hmm.
What are we looking for? My hope is that it's a major manufacturer of something. We're probably not going to get a car manufacturer, but we might get a battery manufacturer. We
Exactly.
might get an OEM manufacturer. We might get some kind of steel mill type product. But the hope would be that we would attract an industry that would invest northwards of $1 billion and hire upwards of 2,000 people, be a rail user, be a user of the river. But more importantly, and this is what we want to do, we want to attract that industry that when they come, all of their suppliers are going to call and say, hey, Acme widgets going to the Port of Little Rock, we need to be in Central Arkansas. So
Mm-hmm.
we might get 15 or 20 suppliers that are going to come. They're not going to be able to go to the port because we don't have the real estate, but they can go to Jacksonville, they can go to
Exactly.
Arkadelphia, they can go to
Exactly.
Hot Springs, they can go to Conway. So we can, this one, whatever it is up being, has the ability or has the potential to impact all of Central Arkansas. And that's our dream. That's our hope. We want all of Central Arkansas to be healthy financially. We want all of Central Arkansas to have good jobs. And if we can attract that right industry, then we will be successful. This will be another watershed movement, not only for the port, but for Central Arkansas. And stay tuned because there aren't many sites like that out there in the
Exactly.
region. And I think we're going to get a lot of interest once we start actively marketing it.
Wow. That is very exciting. I'm going to do something strange. I'm going to quote you back to yourself because I like this quote. I'm using it in a column, just so you know. But you said, if a company comes to town, they're not necessarily looking for reasons to locate there. They're looking for reasons not to locate there. Is the land not ready? Is it not under control? Have the studies not been done? Are there no utilities to it? If we can provide those cultural studies, those environmental studies, those geotechnical studies to give all that information in a packet to a prospect, then it makes the decision so much easier. Talk about that process a little bit.
That's what it all comes down to. As the world has gotten smaller, you can build that widget anywhere in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And so when a prospect comes to a community or a site selector comes to a community or a C-suite executive comes to community, they're looking at other places. They're not just looking at one. There might be a few exceptions, but in all likelihood, they've got a dozen other communities. So they're going and they have to make a decision that's good for their shareholders, good for their board of directors, good for their employers. And when you take them to a wooded field and say, just imagine that we'll have a road here in 18 months and we'll get the water line to it next year and we'll add power. They're just going to go back and say, that site's not ready.
Not ready. Yeah.
Because you can build anything, anywhere, we have to deliver any community. Of course, I'm focused on the port, but any community has to deliver a site that is basically shovel ready, or at least could be shovel ready within a few months, because they are looking for reasons to take you off the list. It makes it's easy. It's hard to make that final decision. And you can talk to any of the prospects that have come recently. They probably spent hours and hours and hours pondering. But it's easy to take a community off if you don't control the land, you don't have utilities, you don't have roads. And so for us to do our job the best we can do it, we have to make sure that site that we have, and that's what we're doing on the mega site, is as ready as possible so that they can make the decision, close the deal, report to their board, and start construction within 6 to 9 months.
Now, one of the things you just hit on is you've got to have the sites, you've got to have the land. I noticed a recent land purchase was just announced. We had money in the sales tax proposal in North Little Rock, which did not go down. Talk a little bit about your future of how you add land, how you finance that. What are you looking as we look 10, 20 years
Yeah,
out?
so that's a question that I don't have a good answer for, but and credit to the city of Little Rock, they in 2011 they gave us $10 million to buy
Hmm.
land. We were able to purchase about $20 million worth of leveraging and things like that, and that was a good deal. In 2021, they refinanced a bond issue and gave us another $15 million to buy land, and that's what was recently announced. We just closed, or we brokered a deal on an 880-acre farm to the west of the port, and that's going to allow us to close on that. But moving forward, we don't have an identified revenue stream, and I don't know what we'll do. Obviously, as we sell land or broker deals or grow our revenue, we can reinvest.
Hmm.
On a good year, the port will put $1 million in the bank. We turn around and buy land. We turn around and invest in infrastructure. We don't make a profit. We reinvest in our footprint. Um, I do think that I can't speak for the city or the mayor. I don't know what their future plans are, but we'll figure it out. There's the other thing that we've talked about. We don't necessarily have to own the land, but if we can get a landowner to put it under contract and let us
Hmm.
market it for him, um, there's no harm in that either. I
Right,
mean, our
right.
our goal is to grow jobs, and we'll do whatever we can to do that. Obviously, owning the land gives you more flexibility, gives you a little bit more control. I think with the 1,000-acre mega site, the 800-acre farm that we talked about, we've got some opportunities, but it only takes one. Wellspun's on 800 acres.
Wow.
It's
Yeah.
one
Eat
project.
one big project and
Yeah,
eat
and
all of that up.
so
Yeah.
we're working on it. We've got a The big question is what's next for the port. I share the story. In 1959, on July 6th, the city council said, let's have a port. And someone, I would have loved to have been in that room, put their finger on a map and said, let's put it here. Now, think about here in 1959. The river didn't exist because it wasn't built.
That's right.
The
That's
interstate
right.
that
You
you
didn't
get
have the
on,
navigation
the
system. Yeah.
interstate that you drive on to get the port didn't exist. Bill and Hillary Clinton Airport was Adams Field. College
Hmm.
Station was a brand new small community, but someone had the foresight to say, let's put it here. 65 years later, $500 million a year in the local economy, 10,000 jobs. We need to have that. We need to have that discussion today on what's next,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and I think we'll have that discussion in the coming year or two because, as I mentioned earlier, Little Rock, Central Arkansas, it's our turn for the next decade to grow jobs, and we'll keep winning these projects as long as we will keep winning these projects as long as we have the available real estate, and that's a priority for us.
Yeah. Yeah. Before we finish up, I want to go back and I want to ask you, and I know this is not your job. Your job now is to produce the jobs, but you mentioned people coming from more than 40 counties, and in your previous life, you spent a long time with the city of Little Rock as assistant city manager, as director of Parks and Recreation for the city, and as you know, I write about Little Rock itself a lot. What are the things we need to do to get more of those people living in Little Rock, or at least living in Central Arkansas rather than driving so far? I know that's not part of your charge right now, but I know it's something as somebody who was a longtime city of Little Rock employee that you think about a lot.
I think about it every day, and we have to become a community of choice. Um, there's a lot of things that go into that. Some of it are we can control as a government. Some of it we can't. You have to have affordable housing.
Hmm.
We're seeing now quality of life is critically important. And if you look at Northwest Arkansas and the quality of life, so we've got to make sure we have arts and food and music and trails and parks. We have to have good public transportation, which we need some improvement there. We're trying. I think schools are always a factor, and the public schools, which I'm a big proponent of. We also have charter schools and private schools, so all that factors in. I think what we can do, and we've had some growth in Little Rock
Hmm.
over the last 5 years in population. I think we're probably around 210,000 now. We're not growing as fast as I wish we could, but if we can keep bringing these jobs and we can keep working with the city and the county and the school district, these other government, water, power, to create this destination, I think we'll get there. I grew up in Little Rock, and when I was growing up, we didn't have Cabot and Benton and we had them, but they were small towns.
Exactly. They were not
Now
large
it's
centers
easy.
that they are
Yeah,
now.
now it's easy. You can drive to Cabot in 40 minutes, and you can buy a little more affordable home. You have all the same restaurants and shopping centers. You don't have to come to town on Saturday to go to Park Plaza or University Mall like we used to, or Casa Bonita for the dinner at Ashland University. But we are doing some really good things. I think that what we're seeing with the dental school. I think what we're seeing with some of the downtown master plan, the 30 crossing park, if we ever get that done.
Exactly.
Those are the things that will set us apart. And as a community, we just have to stay bound together, working together with a common goal to make Little Rock a destination or a city that people want to choose. And we're going to get there. We're making some right steps. We've got a long way to go, and it's not always going to be easy, but I think we're going to get there.
There are some exciting things going on. I mean, we're taping this right now in the Democrat Gazette building downtown. And Brian, I look out my window of my office on the third floor, and I see work going on the Boyle building on one side. I see the Little Rock Technology Park expanding on the other side. That's just looking out my window. 2 downtown projects where a lot of cities across the country would be begging for any downtown projects
Absolutely.
right now. So
Yeah,
that's kind of exciting.
It
to
is,
me.
and downtown is the heart of any community, and I'm glad people are investing. And there's a lot of there's talk about some other things. I think this master plan that the city produced could make something happen. Hillary Clinton's talked about doing something on the Clinton Library site with her piece.
Exactly.
Somebody will grab up the old Heifer building and do something amazing there. Maybe it's a Fortune 500 headquarters. What's happening in the East Village? It's incredible what's going on down there. There's a lot happening. You go out to the far western town, the apartments that are coming up out of the ground, the retail. There's a lot of good stuff happening, and we just need to make sure that we stay together as a community, and promote ourselves as a single community, and then we'll get there. I really do believe that. My mother, if she was still alive, she would say I was overly optimistic, but I think we're on the right track.
I tend to agree with you, and I'll close with this. We need to wrap up, but as I pull out and I look statewide, we've been talking about Central Arkansas, but you go up to Northwest, and I invented a word, I think, in a recent column, which was boomier, because I said we've been writing about the boom up there for 30 years. That boom's getting boomier, if nothing else.
It
Now,
is.
with the massive healthcare investments that Alice Walton's making, on and on. Look at that. We look at the new fighter mission in Fort Smith that's going to have an annual economic impact on West Arkansas of somewhere between 500 million and $1 billion a year, they estimate. U.S. Steel's Big River 2 is coming online anytime now. Will make Mississippi County the leading steel producer in America. Who of us who grew up in this state would have ever dreamed that Arkansas would be the leading steel state in America?
Go figure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we go south. The lithium boom is going to happen. It's not going to be overnight, but it's going to happen. Meanwhile, the defense industry is booming with world tensions increasing in the Camden area. You mentioned the Weyerhaeuser investment between Monticello and Warren. I look all over the state at these things that are happening now in every corner. And I'm sure our friends over at AEDC would love to say, well, this was part of our master plan. We planned it just like this, where it would all happen at about the same time. Of course, it's not, but it has happened. And I share your optimism economically, but even more so as I look out statewide. I think we could be on the verge of something really big in Arkansas if we play our cards right these next few years.
You are not wrong on that, and you raised great points. Every corner of the state has something significant. The lithium industry, we don't know what it looks like, but it's going to be huge. Weyerhaeuser, $500 million on an investment.
Yeah.
Arkansas and all of our communities, if we manage it well and we stay focused and committed together, we can change the world in Arkansas. And I think that it'll be interesting to see what happens, like I said, over the next decade. I'm particularly interested in the port. I think it's going to be strong growth, but the state is only as strong as its weakest community, right? So we want growth all over Arkansas. We sure do.
Absolutely. Bryan, thanks for your time again. Thanks for all you're doing. Really exciting times. And I won't make so long between shows the next time because there's too much going on. It's hard to get it all in 30 minutes.
Well, stay tuned. There's more coming.
All right. That's what I wanted to hear. Bryan Day from the Little Rock Port Authority, thank you for joining us for another edition of the Southern Fried Podcast, a production of the Arkansas Democrat Gazette.